Today on the show, we have Steven Jaggers. This guy is who I went to when I got certified for breathwork because he is a breathwork facilitator, shaman, and overall amazing coach and person when it comes to working with the body and healing the nervous system. And he's someone that I met actually in Sedona when I went there for a mastermind event. And he came in and did a womb healing breathwork session with the group and it was so incredibly powerful for each woman in the room. I had never done anything like that before. I was able to process a lot of stuff that I didn't even know needed to be processed through my body at that time. And that whole trip began my process with breathwork and really beginning to heal the nervous system through breathwork and other modalities. What is the nervous system? Why does it need to be healed? Let's talk about this really fast before we start the show. So, your nervous system is your instincts, it's your physical body and how your body responds before you even have the chance to think about something. So, I'm sitting right here in my office. If someone came crashing through my window, my body would react before I even had a chance to think a logical thought about what I should do. That is your nervous system. That's your instincts. And the thing is, every time we do that, stuff like that gets stored into our nervous system and it triggers fight or flight, right? It would trigger this, oh my gosh, moment in my body that literally just stays there. We never actually release it. And so when that happens, we build up more and more and more and more and more into our body until we're someone that lives with chronic anxiety or depression or fear or worry or control or things that we aren't sure even where they're coming from, but it's just a state of being. It's just how we feel deep down inside most of the time. And when people talk about energy work and they talk about the law of attraction and attracting things into your life, what they're really talking about is your state of being. Your state of being, meaning how you really feel deep down inside your body. Do you feel safe? Do you feel relaxed? Do you feel peaceful? Or do you really feel fear, anxiety, scared, right? A lot of things that a lot of people actually are walking around feeling at a base level and they just don't even know it. So, healing your nervous system is how you begin to change your energetic state. You cannot change your energetic state through talk alone. You cannot change it through affirmations alone. You cannot change it through doing different action, things like that. You have to heal the body. You have to heal the nervous system, which means you have to release stuff from your nervous system. That is why breathwork is so powerful. It's why I wanted to get certified so I could help my clients. And I'm offering it now for my group in my Level Up Babe membership. Women in there will be doing breath work with me so they can start really changing their nervous system state, because all the affirmations aren't going to do anything for you, right? All the new thoughts, all the journaling out new beliefs isn't going to do anything for you when your body is full of stuff that hasn't been processed. So that's what we're going to talk about today. Steven is the master of all things, and he healed his own body with breath work and somatic work. And we're going to talk about it today. I hope you enjoy the show. Yay. Welcome, Steven. I'm so excited that you're here.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Joy. It's an honor and a pleasure.
You might not know this, but I've only had one other man on the show besides Peter. So you're literally the second man besides my husband to be on the show.
I feel absolutely honored. So thank you.
So take us back to the beginning. Who is Steven Jaggers? How did you become who you are today? How did you get into breath work? We would love to hear all the things.
All right. So I'll try to keep this a little condensed, but we'll go back to the beginning. We'll go back to, let's say, even before I was born. And my parents specifically, my mom is from Southern California. She's a total Cali chick. Parents had lots of money and they took care of her, and they gave her lots of money but very little time and attention. My dad is from Nebraska. He's the youngest of 10, and he grew up on a cattle farm. He had lived a farmer lifestyle in Nebraska, and he ended up playing football at Nebraska and broke his leg. Ended up getting addicted to painkillers and moved to California with like $500, and he was kind of a druggie. And he moved to California with little money, just drove his truck out there, and ended up working at a bar in Southern California that was owned by my mom's dad. And so he ended up being a bartender at this bar in Southern California. And my mom's dad was like, "Hey, I got this nice Midwestern boy I'd like you to meet." I think they were like 23 or 24. And my mom was actively addicted to hard street drugs, I think meth and some other stuff as well too. But they were partying together and eventually had me. And I know I've never shared this before actually on a podcast, but I just had a conversation with my mom the other day. I'm very close with my mom. I love her so much. But she had 4 abortions before she had me, and I'm an only child, which is just like, it's crazy. I don't know why they decided to keep one, but it ended up being me. And so yeah, my parents, they were struggling with addiction to hard street drugs when I was very young. And I was born probably a meth baby as far as I know. I haven't really got them to say that necessarily, but yeah, so I was about up until about 3, my parents were really struggling. My dad actually moved to Arizona when I was 3 years old for rehab here, and ended up going to rehab and starting his own pest control business here in Arizona, and contacted my mom to come out here and start a new life. And they both came out here and brought me, and started a new life here in Arizona. And throughout my adolescence, elementary school, junior high school, my parents got clean off of street drugs, but they switched to prescription medication, and lots of different prescription medications. And I watched, my mom. I think I was very aware as a child, watching my parents. You're so aware of your parents when you're that young, and you internalize so much. And I just watched them struggle. I watched them, my mom really couldn't come to any of my sport events. She really couldn't come to any like the family barbecues or meet my other friends' parents. And I was just like, what? There's something wrong here. And I didn't know exactly what it was, but I could feel it inside. And so,
how did you get to all of these functions?
How did I get to these functions? I know you're thinking that as a mom. Yeah.
Right? Yeah. Like as a mom, I'm like, if she can't go, how are you getting there?
She would give me a ride, or my dad would give me a ride, but they'd never stay. They were afraid of social interactions. I think also afraid of, just, yeah, my mom specifically struggled with anxiety and depression very badly. There would be weeks at a time where she wouldn't leave her bedroom, or she'd go to work. She's a hairstylist. She'd go to work and she'd come home, and she always cared for me. She gave me so much love and unconditional love. And she was such a good mom, but she was just riddled with anxiety and depression as far as the outside world. I think that she really found purpose in taking care of me. She said that, if she wouldn't have had me, she probably would have died, or, probably would have ended up in jail, or, a significant druggie. But her having me gave her a new purpose and a new life. But yeah, they did the best that they could. I just knew that there was something wrong inside, and that kind of caused me to really just wonder what makes people tick. And later on in high school, I was always very active. I played basketball, baseball, so many different sports. I was very into the body, and I think I was about 17 or 18, right, getting out of high school. I had significant back pain, and I was like, why am I having back pain? I'm so young. And I went and got my back x-rayed, and they were like, you have scoliosis, and you also have some fusing in your spine, in your in your thoracic spine.
Wow.
And at that time, I was like, what? I really didn't understand. And, I wasn't in a ton of pain, but I would get more sore than I felt like was usual for a young person. And I continued to, outside of high school, I went to school. I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I went to a community college and I studied psychology, addiction psychology specifically. I was really interested in, I think I wanted to help my parents more than anything. I studied addiction psychology and then also physical therapy. I couldn't decide whether I wanted to be a psychologist or a physical therapist. And within that sort of schooling, I had a very hard time paying attention. I had a very hard time learning, through books, and I ended up dropping out. And from there, I ended up getting a corporate job for like 2 years. And while I was working this corporate job, I was a HR executive for a microchip company. I don't know how I landed that job, but I was a human resources executive when I was like 19. I quickly realized that the corporate lifestyle was not for me. During that time, I started researching more holistic ways of working with the body and the mind. And I think I actually look back and I started having lucid dreams, incredibly lucid dreams. And I was like, what is going on? My dreams were just as real as if I was, walking through my day-to-day life. And I started researching it, and that led me down a rabbit hole of understanding altered states of consciousness and different brainwave states. And, that led me to like manifestation and meditation. And, it took me down the rabbit hole, and it led me to kind of studying more Eastern philosophies, holistic perspectives on health and healing. And I found a holistic school here in Tempe, Arizona, that I ended up taking. I ended up studying body work, specifically neuromuscular massage therapy, yoga, life coaching, holistic nutrition, cranial sacral therapy, polarity. I literally was so infatuated with understanding all of this. I took everything that this school offered. And I ended up becoming an assistant teacher there. And then eventually I was a teacher there. I taught kinesiology and physiology and energetic anatomy and a lot of the somatic classes there, understanding how the body holds trauma. Mm-hmm. And I really got into that because I wanted to understand it for my parents, but not only for myself. And, understanding the energetics of the body, if you start to look at the nervous system and the nerve bundles of each of those 7 centers, which, in Eastern philosophy, we look at those as like the chakra system. So I studied the chakra system, and I found out that blockage in my spine, in my thoracic center, was related to my solar plexus, my fire center. And anytime that, you could look at addictive or stimulants, like addictive stimulant drugs, those actually take a toll on your fire center, your adrenal glands. A lot of people that are addicted to, meth, caffeine, Adderall, whatever those things are depleting your fire center. And so I really think that was just kind of developmentally through my mom and my dad. I was probably addicted to that as a child, and it was it left me like energetically and there's always emotional components to it too. But through a lot of these different modalities that we can get into, I ended up healing a lot of these issues with my spine, which is very powerful.
Yeah. What caused you to not go down the same path as your parents? Because it doesn't sound to me like you were the party kid. It doesn't sound like
I was. I partied.
So you weren't afraid of going down the same path?
I was at, so I explored partying and alcohol and, I didn't really get into drugs. I would definitely use a lot of cannabis when I was young and in high school. But I was definitely a partier in high school, and I'm part of me is kind of glad that I had that experience in high school. And with that being said, my parents, I had saw what the route that my parents went down, and they were very open about it. And they were like, this can lead you in a very bad direction. You don't want to end up like in situations where we were. So they actually, um, it's always a choice. You can go one of two ways. You can choose to go the same route, or you can choose a different route. And I think coming into this world, I had a pretty keen awareness around things. And that being said, I mean, I know I have a lot of friends that became drug addicts and had a very hard time with life, that their parents they kind of sheltered them, and then all of a sudden, if you shelter something, they're going to want to explore at some point. And I think me just kind of watching the direction that my parents went, and having that understanding, I would party and I would explore, but I would never take it too far, which is I don't know exactly where that came from.
Mhm. Well, how much of it do you think is hereditary? Because that's what people say a lot too.
I think I mean, the concept of nature and nurture, I think that everyone is born with a specific design, if you will. We're all different. We all have a ancestral lineage that passes on different genetic traits. They say addictive personalities are passed down absolutely through genes, but there's a lot of studies that on epigenetics as well, that you can change your genetics and you can change your patterning, and this is being proven by science, through the science of epigenetics, that it's not just nature. As far as when I'm saying nature and nurture, it's not just how you were born or who you are. It's also like what you choose to surround yourself with, the day-to-day patterns that you have, your upbringing, your environment as well. It's not just like who you are, but it's also your environment and your choices, and both of those have an effect on you. And you have a default setting, but you can also change almost anything.
I love that. So you healed your scoliosis through this somatic work that you learned.
Yeah, through a combination. I explored a lot. I was always big on like weight training and stuff, and I got into yoga. And the reason actually why I got into body work specifically is that my back was hurting, and I went and got some body work from somebody, and it ended up helping me more than anything. And I was like, I can do this. This would be a skill that I could learn, that I could help anybody at any time. And I don't need anything else besides me and another person.
So tell people what you mean by body work.
Yeah. So, body work could be labeled as massage therapy. There's so many different types of body work out there. I kind of refrain from the word massage, because massage is thought of as just a relaxation thing. There's so many different types, and it can be very, very powerful. And we'll get into somatic understanding here soon. But there's lots of different types of body work. Like there's structural body work that actually, chiropractic can be a form of structural body work. Anytime people are working on your body, physical therapy, even like Reiki, or some of these more energetic types of body work are considered body work, not just massage.
Yeah. So let's get into somatic therapies and what that means. Because so many people hear the word somatic, like, what does that even mean?
Yeah. So through my journey, I, I'm just kind of coming to realize this, but I was always very interested in sports and activities and doing physical things, because that helped me get out of my mind. It helped me not be able to kind of cope with the things that were going on at home. And when you are doing physical activities, you're not thinking about a lot of things. When you're playing sports or you're in a quote unquote flow state, you're not thinking about what's going on at home. You're not thinking about the future, the past, all these different things. And through somatic, so somatic just means of the body in relation to the mind. So we think about the mind body connection, and there's a huge shift going on. If we look at the mental health field, the field of mental health, we can all agree that it's absolutely failing us, because it is not. It shouldn't be the mental health field. It should be the mind body health field. And having a somatic understanding is understanding that the mind affects the body, but the body also affects the mind.
Go into that more for me. Go into that more on detail for me, because people are probably hearing that and going, "What do you mean it shouldn't be the mental health field? It should be the mental body health field."
Mind body health field. So, I mean, you're a coach. You understand that you can work with someone's mindset, and you can coach them and do talk therapy and listen to them and really work with someone's mental capacity. And that doesn't necessarily mean that there's not, like, someone can get to a really good place mentally. That doesn't mean that there's still stuff stuck in their body. We as a culture, we have become a very mind-centered culture. We have labeled the mind our king, and we have labeled the body as something that we just have to deal with, or we have to just put through an exercise or we just have to put food in it, where the body actually has an innate intelligence is what I teach, but there is so much intelligence within every one of your cells and within your body that is so much smarter than your mind could even comprehend. I mean, you are digesting your food every day. You are repairing yourself on a cellular level. You're growing hair. There's so many autonomic functions going on in your body. You're secreting hormones. There's just so much that's going on within your body on a day-to-day basis that is an absolute intelligent function, that you don't even have to think about. So when we when we label the mind as our king, and when we try to work with just mental health, we kind of don't necessarily pay attention to what's going on physically. And I can get into that deeper as far as we are, as humans, we forget that we are animals. I know, like in our modern culture, we forget that we are absolutely animals. We're physical beings. And through the process of evolution, you could say, or as humans, as human animals, our first response to anything in the world, anything that's happening to us, our nervous system, like I said, is our chakra system. It is where we're receiving and giving energy, and we're, receiving what's happening in the world in front of us. We actually run on instinct first. If someone were to break into your house or open your door right now, you would have an instinct to that, and probably you, based on your patterns, you would say, oh, it's probably just Peter, or, but if someone was literally breaking in your house, your first thing would be an instinctual response. You wouldn't have to think about a thing. You would be like, I'm going to run, I'm going to hide, I'm going to try to fight this person. And that's an instinctual response. And then from there, you will have an emotional component to that. You will feel a certain emotion. You will feel scared. You will feel fear. You will feel, and then from that emotion, like after, we have the instinctual response, we have an emotional component to it. After that, then our mind comes in and we start to tell ourselves a story about this thing. And then the mind starts to create a story, and that story shapes our world. It shapes how we view ourselves. It shapes how we view the world. When something like that happens and it's traumatic, we might think that everyone's out to get us and we're constantly going to get broken into. I mean, there's totally different situations, and I work with people from all different situations. But when we look at trauma specifically, or trauma or stress, trauma is not necessarily the thing that happens to you. It's not, the person breaking in. It's the response inside of you based on the thing that happens to you. So it's a trauma response. It's a stress response. And we all have different capacities in which we can hold that. But that response, it's not a mental response. It's a physical response. It's a body response. And that response is embedded within our nervous system. And there's all of our defense systems that are our responses are an intelligent response. It's to keep us safe. It's to keep us alive. But now in our modern world, where we are safe, where we're hardly ever having to like fight for our lives or anything, we become very fragile as humans, and we have those sort of defense responses to very little things, and they don't just go away once they're turned on. Like if you have say you have something traumatic happen to you where you are, someone comes in and steals all your money. And then you're just like, you have a response where, oh my God, what am I going to do? Or, I mean, that's not necessarily realistic in life, but you might have this response where it's like, oh my God, I need to protect and hold everything that I have. And I can't spend any of my money, or I have to, I have to figure out what I'm going to do. That can be an intelligent response during that moment, but that 10 years later in your life, when you are completely out of that situation, that response can still be active in your nervous system. And that can affect your relationships later on down the road. It can affect your choice. It can affect your choices. And that's when I'm saying this, like mind, body, health field, those trauma responses, those stress responses are stored in your nervous system. They're not a byproduct of your mind. Right. So that meaning that we have to have different somatic, meaning of the body, techniques to be able to discharge that out of our nervous system.
Because you can't talk it out. Yeah.
You can't talk it out. It's in there,
Why therapy can only get you so far.
It can get you so far, and a lot of people come to me and they're in a great state mentally. They've gotten to a great state mentally, and that doesn't mean that there's not still stuff stuck in the body.
So let's talk about that. Let's talk about a perfect example, because if they're in a great state mentally, I can hear people right now going, well, then how would they be stuck? Like if they're in a great state mentally, what is showing up in their life that they're stuck with that's indicating there's stuff in the body?
Well, it depends, and I work with like high level CEOs, and I work with high performing individuals. I have a lot of students that are psychologists and doctors that work with people that are, not in a good mental state, that have experienced lots of traumas and are very traumatized. But trauma and stress, these things are guaranteed in our lifetime, and they can be the thing that causes us to grow. Like my trauma from my childhood, I think, was the thing that I was able to overcome that allowed me to bring this to the world, what I'm doing right now. So it can all, the traumatic thing that you go through, it's not necessarily a bad thing. If you overcome it, it increases your capacity, and it's the thing that can be the catalyst for your growth 100%.
Which is what this podcast is based on, because that's exactly my story with going through infidelity in our marriage and everything. That was so traumatizing. And I wouldn't be here today doing what I do, impacting people the way that I am, if I hadn't have gone through that. So it's like,
absolutely, it's
here to serve you when you know how to alchemize it. And so I think that's where the breath work comes in, that we learned from you. There's obviously other forms too, but breath work is so key. And let's go down that road, talking about breath work and why that works, like why that's a release and why that's needed. But first, what are some of the breakthroughs people are having by doing breath work?
Every session looks different. And I would say most of the breakthroughs that people have are, so we'll talk about that while we get into breath work. How about that? Yeah. So specifically, somatic release breath work is designed in a sort of way. It comes from a couple different modalities, specifically holotropic breath work, which people can look that up. Also NLP guided verbal cueing, and also trauma release touch techniques as well. But basically what's happening is we are creating a safe space, first of all, for someone to come in. And there's a number of things that go into that, but we'll save that. But we're creating a safe space for people to basically breathe heavily for about an hour. And within that heavy breathing, you are breathing very heavily and very strong. And it's making your system, your body, think that it's in a traumatic state again. But you're in a safe place and you have people there helping you. So it's kind of like reenacting this thing. So basically you're breathing for an hour, you're putting your nervous system in a very stressed state, a physiological trauma state, but your mind knows that you're safe because you're with a practitioner. And what happens is a lot of that stuff that's stored in your nervous system, we kind of open up this opportunity for you to discharge it through different types of expression. And if you look at animals in nature, if something traumatic happens to them, the first thing that they do is they take huge deep breaths. And then after that, they'll shake uncontrollably. And they'll usually make some sort of noise as well, too. And that is crucial for understanding trauma, because those things, those deep breaths, those shaking, and that noise that this animal is making is the sign from the body to the mind saying that, okay, we don't have to have these defenses up anymore, that the trauma is gone and that we're safe to just go about our life and relax. And most of us in our day-to-day life, we have something stressful or traumatizing happen to us, and we just hold it, and we're tough, we're strong, we can just push it off. But we don't actually have that discharging or that expression that comes through that lets us, our mind and our body, know that we are safe and we don't have to hold those defense systems, those limiting mindsets, those scarcity principles, those thinking the world's out to get us nervous system states. So the breath work basically opens up an opportunity for you to release a lot of that stress and that trauma that's been embedded on a nervous system level. And once that's kind of released, once you release a lot of that, you actually have more of your energy that you can put towards your vision, your purpose, your clarity. As humans, we only have a certain capacity. And there's a concept called parasitic tension, which means that we If we have tension that's parasitic, we have places in our body that are constantly contracting themselves that we don't even know is there, but it's constantly draining on our energy. And the same thing happens to our mind and to our nervous system and to our mental health. If we only have a limited capacity, and if we have these defense systems that are on all the time that we don't even know is there, our capacity for dealing with our family, with our relationships, with our business is so much smaller. So when you clear a lot of that out from your nervous system, from your body, your capacity to create, to actually turn your pain and the shit that you've gone to into your purpose, into your vision, is so much more. So the biggest thing that I hear from people when they do this sort of work is they have a significant body or somatic release, and then they're able to see so much clearly what's the life that I actually want to live, because they're not chained up by those defense systems that are constantly activated in their body.
Yeah, I don't think we realize how weighed down we are energetically, most people walking around, because we're not taught a lot about energy growing up and things like that.
Absolutely.
In society. So people don't realize how heavy they feel to themselves and to the people that are around them. But when they can start to become aware of why they're tired all the time, why they don't feel motivated, why they don't have clarity, why they feel blah, like a lot of that is energy needing to be shifted and transmuted and discharged and like all the things. And so I would say for us, like, I know for me, when I've done breath work, it's first of all released things that I didn't even know needed to be released. I thought I'd already known about it. I thought I'd already dealt with it. I thought I already moved on. So it helped me release things that were there. It gave me a chance to almost, I don't want to say like rewrite history, but it is kind of going back and giving a chance to have a do-over with some of these things that are being processed. So using my voice as opposed to never saying anything in the past, like when this stuff happened. I know Peter, when he's done breath work with you, I know he won't mind me sharing this, so I'll share, has just felt so much lighter. Like to me, like I can feel it when he does breath work, because it's like that weight that you're carrying on your shoulders is gone.
Yeah, absolutely. And it is a different experience for everyone. And sometimes that experience is just purely physical, like Peter's experience, where he just clears a lot of the stress and the weight that's been on his shoulders. And I guarantee that's probably making him have more capacity, and he's probably nicer to his family and nicer to you guys, and is not just so easily ticked off. Yes. But also you are, when you do this type of breath work, you are going into an altered state of consciousness. You are taking yourself into an altered state, which opens up the ability to actually really see where you have been limiting yourself, where you have been blocking yourself. You can't see that in your day-to-day waking state. You have to do something to take you into an altered state. And what you're saying, as far as rewriting history, it's absolutely the truth. I mean, there's science out there that says when you, so it's this state, every recall is a reframe. So every time you recall a memory, you actually reframe it into your mind. So memories are kind of like these little filing cabinets in our brain. And every time we pull out that file, whatever the mood that we're in that moment, and whatever the perspective that we have towards this memory is in that moment when we recall it, is how we're going to put it back into our filing cabinet. So every time you recall something, and say you're in a different state of mind, and you actually have, within breath work, something comes up, and you are able to see like how these traumas, these painful experiences that you've gone through has shaped you and made you the woman that you become today. you reframe that back in your mind, and it goes from being the thing that takes a toll on you to the thing that becomes the gasoline on the fire, that becomes the catalyst in you showing up for your community and your world, and changing people's lives.
So tell everyone a little bit about where you are today with your practice and how you took this experience of basically like self-healing and learning all of this because you wanted to not only help your parents, but you wanted to heal yourself, and how you've built that into like this huge practice and huge impact all over Arizona for sure, and other states.
Yeah, it's growing a lot right now, and I'm very thankful to have an incredible team and people that are kind of joining this vision, because it's a movement. I think that right now we can all agree that our health system it's not our mental health system, our physical health system. They are not serving us right now, and we are finding other ways to take care of ourselves. And so myself, I've been a neuromuscular therapist and instructor for a long time, and also been a performance coach and personal trainer and functional trainer and lots of different titles. But I ended up creating this specific modality called somatic release breathwork. And it is for professionals, high-level life coaches, psychologists, doctors, any sort of therapist, business. I have a lot of business coaches that are using this too to help people kind of get over a lot of the blockages that come up within business. I have relationship coaches that are using this as well, that are helping people kind of get to the root cause of what's, causing people to have defenses against their partner. And so this training is for professionals that want to use this modality as an addition to their to their practice, to the people that they're working for. And it will eventually get big enough to the point where this is continuing education for mental health professionals, for just health professionals in general. And it's very exciting to, because it's, as you heard my story, it's very near and dear to my heart. My mom, she's tried to commit suicide probably around 3 times. And I've actually been there while she's tried that, 3 different times, and I've watched it, and it hurts so much. And at the end of the day, you realize that you cannot necessarily help another person you cannot force another person to help themselves. Sustainable change has to come from the inside out. But the more tools that we have as a culture, as a community, that's embedded, and understanding that we are a holistic system, that we are a mind-body system, and both affect each other, and both of them need to be honored. Anytime anything happens, all parts of you are affected and all parts of you are connected. And we have to have that mindset, and that's the movement that we're trying to make.
I love it. So really quickly before we wrap up, who is breathwork for? Because I have a lot of people listening in that are moms, they're building businesses, and they're sitting here like, I'm not some high-level CEO. Like, I'm not here for performance. So who's breathwork for? And then number 2, if they heard this and they're like, okay, where do I go? Like, how do I get started? What would you recommend?
Yeah, absolutely. So who is it for? It really is for anyone. You're breathing right now as we speak. There are some contraindications, if you do have some health issues, that you can figure out whether or not this sort of breath work is contraindicated to you and you shouldn't do it. But basically almost everyone who is functioning in the world can benefit, and it doesn't matter what state you're in. If there's, like I said, trauma and stress is guaranteed to anybody. to everyone. And we have to have tools to move through that. So if you're just a mom, and you have kids and you're just working your day-to-day job, it can be incredibly powerful for you. Like I said, I work with high-level professionals and CEOs. I have psychologists and doctors that are working with the general public or significantly traumatized public, but basically anybody can benefit from this modality. And that's why it is so powerful, because you don't need anything else besides yourself and your breath. And very soon we will have a Find a Facilitator link on our website, where people will be featured, because we've had lots of people all over the world looking for practitioners. So that'll be a function of our website very soon. In the meantime, you can go to srbreathwork.com and you can shoot us a message there, see what we're about. And you can get a session from Joy here, because she's absolutely trained and she is phenomenal. So hit her up.
Well, I learned from the best. Yes, I took Steven's training and it is incredible. If you are a coach listening in, I highly recommend it, because when you're working with clients that you're limited in how you're helping them heal and how you're helping them break through when you're not working with the body, when you're not helping people actually process stress and trauma and things like that. So I highly, highly recommend it. Tell everyone where they can find you, how they can work with you, all the things.
Yeah, so I gave you the website. It's www.srbreathwork.com. I'm mostly active on Instagram. My Instagram is @Jaggers, JAGGERSJR. YouTube I have some videos on there. I'm not super active on YouTube. You can look me up, Steven Jaggers. And that is mostly where I am at. So Instagram, or you can check out the website. And I'm located in Phoenix, Arizona right now. And that's basically where I work out of. I also spend a lot of time in Austin, Texas, and also Southern California as well. I do Zoom sessions, in-person sessions. And I just want to clarify for the question that you said, who is breathwork for? Who can receive it? Almost anybody. Almost anybody. Who is the training for, and who wants to add this modality to their coaching or to their health practice? That is people that are already working with people on a deep level and wanting another tool to work, to make their practice holistic in its nature. So.
Love it. Thank you so much for coming on. And don't you have a podcast where they can find you too?
Yeah, I totally forgot. I'm like, I know there's something else. Yeah, I have a podcast as well. Lots of good information on there as far as the mind and body, but it's called the MindBody Mentor. So you can check me out. I'm available on basically everything. So thank you so much for having me on, Joy.
Thank you for coming. One last question that I asked you before we wrap up.
Let's hear it.
If you were to look back at your biggest rock bottom and you in that moment, and you could have a conversation with that version of you, what would you tell him in that moment?
It's okay to relax. You don't have to hold on so tightly. And I don't think that's going to make sense for a lot of people, but it makes sense for me and where I was at.
No, that absolutely resonates with me. I'm tearing up, thinking if I had told myself that back, in my rock bottom. So I love that. Thank you for sharing. And thank you for your time today. Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, it was a pleasure. I'm always down to jam, and I would love to have you on my podcast very soon as well. We can coordinate that.
Let's do it. All right, everyone. As always, if you loved this episode, take a screenshot. You can share it on Instagram and tag Steven and I. It's a small way to give back to people who are showing up, putting out awesome content for you every single week. All right, go have a beautiful day. We will see you soon for a breathwork session.
Yeah, take care, everyone.